China has almost stopped buying oil from the United States. In August, imports dropped to almost zero. Next month, they will drop even more. By the middle of 2025, China quietly removed American oil from its shopping list. Before, it was buying 160,000 barrels of oil every day. Now, it buys almost none. There was no big speech. No warning. Just a small 10% tax and silence. While China was making oil deals with Russia and Iran, the U.S. President, Hayden Yuan, was busy talking about tariffs like it was still 2018. In Texas, oil ports were half full. Pipelines were moving slowly. But the president kept fighting with Canada about wood. He also kept blaming wind turbines. He called it leverage, but the rest of the world called it giving up. Now the world's biggest oil buyer is gone. And America was outplayed by its own leader. At one time, 160,000 barrels a day did not seem like much. But it was enough for the U.S. to build big export systems near the Gulf Coast. They added new terminals. They built more pipelines. Oil tankers lined up like Uber drivers outside refineries. Then in February 2025, China added a small 10% tax on U.S. oil. After that, China stopped buying. Even when prices were low, China did not buy. No message. No reason. Just silence. That silence was felt across empty oil ports from Corpus Christi to Houston. Storage tanks that used to fill up and empty every week were now half full. Pipelines meant to carry oil to Asia had no destination. This was not sabotage. This was strategy. While the U.S. leader talked about windmills and trade wars, China quietly changed its future. But China did not act alone. Mexico and Canada also made moves. They started building the Northern Corridor. It is a billion-dollar trade route that avoids U.S. ports. It moves over $120 billion in trade every year. It uses their own Pacific and Atlantic routes. The goal is simple. Keep trade moving, but not through the United States. You don't need a map to see what is happening. The U.S. used to be the center of world trade. It used to be a trusted partner. Now, even close allies are going around the U.S. They want to avoid the chaos from constant tariffs and unstable deals. The saddest part is, no one slammed the door. They just stopped knocking. This is not just about losing one customer. This is something bigger. The world no longer sees America as a reliable partner. And the president? He wasn't pushed away. He was left behind, shouting into an empty room. So what did China do next? It moved quickly. In just a few months, China signed long-term oil deals with Russia, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iran. These deals were big. The prices were fair. And none of them used US dollars. Most of them used China's own currency, the yuan. These were not panic moves. China rebuilt its whole oil system. New trade routes. New contracts. New shipping plans. New refinery setups. Even new payment systems. Everything was changed to fit oil from the Middle East and Russia, not from America. It's like building a brand new computer that no longer works with old software. Then throwing away the manual. Back in Washington, the U.S. president who once said he could beat OPEC was now blaming Canada for high lumber prices. He was tweeting about how wind turbines kill birds. The world was moving forward. But America's energy policy looked old and broken. Even if U.S. oil became very cheap, China cannot use it anymore. Their system is not made for American oil now. It is not just about politics. It is about logistics. The ports are different. The pipelines are different. The refineries are different. Trying to sell U.S. oil to China now is like forcing a square peg into a round hole. And doing it blindfolded. While still bragging that you invented the lock. Let's be honest. The only energy coming from Washington right now is hot air. China, the biggest oil buyer in the world, changed its plan. And they didn't even tell the US, but this is not just about oil. It never is. When China changed its oil supply system, it also changed how the money works. By July 2025, most of China's oil deals with Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE were no longer using US dollars. They were done in yuan. This might sound technical, but it's not. It is a slow and powerful cut to America's financial power. Every barrel of oil not priced in US dollars weakens the strength of the US economy. The Chinese yuan is now used to buy oil instead of US dollars. Every time a deal does not use US banks, America loses power. The US cannot control sanctions, trade rules, or global deals anymore. This is not a mistake. It is a plan. Iran found a way to avoid US rules. They use secret oil ships and fake papers. They send millions of barrels of oil to China. China gives this oil to small private refineries called teapots. These teapots do not care about rules or labels. They only want cheap oil. And they prefer to pay in yuan, not in dollars. What did the US president do during all this? Nothing. He just called the yuan funny money at a rally in Iowa. But the rest of the world now calls it the new standard. Before, the US dollar was the main money used to buy oil. Now, it is just one option and not the most popular. The US energy plan was supposed to make the country strong again. But it failed. It left America behind when it was time to sell oil. While the US fought with China over prices and politics, Iran took America's place. Yes, the same Iran that America keeps punishing with sanctions. Now Iran is one of China's biggest oil suppliers. And they did it quietly and smartly. Iranian oil is now entering Chinese ports using shadow fleets. These are secret oil tankers with fake names, flags, and papers. They hide from US sanctions easily. It's like driving through a red light and never getting caught. China's teapots love this system. The oil is cheap. The payment is easy. And there is no paperwork. By mid-2025, China was buying 1.7 million barrels of oil per day from Iran. That is 10 times more than what China used to buy from the US. Let's break it down. The US tried to punish Iran. Iran found another way. China accepted Iran's oil. And the US lost its place in the game. If this was a game, Iran just jumped ahead. They grabbed all the oil cards. They flipped the table. And the US president was still talking about old deals. Sanctions do not work when others stop following your rules. And they really do not work if you keep changing the rules when you lose. While Iran was moving oil, and China was changing the oil market, America was left with empty ports. Export ports in Corpus Christi and Houston are now quiet. These ports used to send oil to Asia. They were built mostly for China. Now China is gone. And the ports have become useless and expensive. The US spent billions of dollars to build pipelines, docks, and oil tanks. They called it energy dominance, but that dream failed. Because your biggest customer changed the channel. And you are still yelling at the TV. Yes, the US is trying to sell oil to Europe, India, and South America. But let's be real, no one can replace China. Not in size. Not in money. Not in power. This is not a small mistake in the oil business. This is a broken business plan. It happened because of pride, bad planning, and short-term thinking. It's like adding too much salt in food, thinking it will help. But it just ruins the dish. Now the US has ports with no use. Pipelines that lead to nowhere. And a government that still thinks it won the trade war. While the US builds empty oil buildings, China is filling up oil barrels. In mid-2025, China quietly filled its oil storage tanks. Now, China has saved enough oil to last more than 3 months. That's more than what global experts usually say is needed. Where did China get the oil? From the usual countries: Russia, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. These are not friendly with the United States. But China is not just saving oil for emergencies. This is a smart plan to gain more power. With full tanks and long-term deals in Chinese yuan, China now has more control. It can set prices, avoid problems, and ignore U.S. pressure. Meanwhile in Washington, U.S. leaders are still arguing about refilling their own oil reserve. Some people wonder if the president even remembers where it is. While China's oil tanks are full, the U.S. is full of denial. The White House is pretending everything is okay. They even call it, Mission Accomplished Part 2. While America talks, China takes action. China didn't need to fight, just smart planning. While the U.S. wrote press releases, China placed big oil orders. And this is not just about China. The whole oil system is changing fast. And it's affecting the entire world. In July, India signed long-term oil deals with Russia. They will pay in yuan and get big discounts. India even reopened old Soviet shipping routes to avoid dangerous waters. Other Asian countries, like Malaysia and Thailand, are changing how they buy oil too. They now like suppliers who allow flexible payments. Most of them do not want to use US dollars anymore. Europe still buys some US oil, but that may change soon. They are asking for lower prices and better deals. They are playing the smart game the US used to lead, but with new rules. This is not a small change. It's a big reset. Oil prices, shipping routes, and trade deals are all changing. And the US is no longer in charge. Where is the man who said US energy would be so strong it would make your head spin? Still spinning, it seems. While the world builds new pipelines and new trade paths, the US president keeps pointing fingers. He still says, we're respected again, but the truth is clear. The world is moving forward. And the US is stuck in the past. This was never just about barrels of oil. It was about control. And when you lose control, it doesn't tell you. It just disappears. There was no big event, no big fight. There was no breaking news saying, America is done. The world didn't push the US out. It simply made new deals. And America wasn't invited. There were no loud protests in Washington. No major US companies complained. While new oil deals were quietly signed, US leaders kept giving old speeches. It was like a broken karaoke machine. Now the silence says it all. At US oil ports like Corpus Christi, the cranes have stopped moving. On oil rigs, the drills have stopped turning. And where oil contracts used to be written in English, now they are in Mandarin and Arabic. No one fired a shot. No enemy attacked. But the result is the same. The US has been left out. Not by enemies but by the rest of the world. That's not diplomacy. That's being ignored. And while the US president blames wind turbines, the world keeps signing new oil deals. The US doesn't even get to see them. Here's the truth. Power doesn't disappear all at once. It fades away slowly when people stop needing you. China didn't slam the door in America's face. They just built a new house. With new rules. And no welcome sign for the US. While China and others were building trade maps, Washington was busy arguing on TV. They fought culture wars instead of trade wars. Even Canada, America's close neighbor, has started sending oil to Asia and Europe. Why? Because of US tariffs and trade problems. And who caused those problems? The US president. Let's review. China left. Iran stepped in. India adapted. Europe got smarter. Canada walked away. And America? We stood still, shouting about winning, while the world moved on. This wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a quiet exit. And no one even asked if the US would be okay. Now, here's the big question. What happens when the world learns to live without America? The answer won't be in the news. It'll be in the silence. And in the contracts that no longer need a US signature. Share your thoughts in the comments. And hit subscribe so you don't miss the next time someone taxes trust and calls it leadership.